In this video, we will take a deep look into the bizarre and unbelievable circumstances surrounding Andrew Collins' book titled The Second Coming. This video is a direct sequel to my first installment in this story titled The Black Alchemist. If you have not already seen it, I would strongly advise you watch that video first, in order to know what has led up to the events we are about to discuss. All locations and discoveries are documented with verifiable proof. Given that this is a video summary, there is naturally going to be information left out. With that being said, you will have to read the book yourself for the full story. The story continues on October 30, 1988, only a few months after the events of the Paradise Mound episode, as Bernard receives a mysterious vision while lying awake in his bed where he finds himself in an unfamiliar abandoned building, only to find the Black Alchemist female accomplice, Rachel Goodison, waiting for him at the top of the stairwell. After linking his mind's eye with hers, it was revealed to Bernard that Rachel and B.A. would have to leave the country of England for some time as they would be in grave danger following Collins' recent publication of the Black Alchemist book. In response to this, for the next 2 months Bernard and Collins would have separate experiences with malevolent thought forms projected their way, as a result of their interference with the nefarious practices that were to have taken place on Paradise Mound back on August 8, 1988. Only after they are able to enlist the help of local colleague and adept psychic named Caroline Wise were they finally able to purge these demonic forces of their influence. As a parting gift to Bernard before he finally leaves the country, the Black Alchemist invades the mind's eye of Bernard on the night of December 17, as he summons Bernard's astral body to a dilapidated barnyard somewhere off the coast of East Sussex as the result of a summoning ritual he and his cohorts had just conducted. After Bernard is forcibly summoned to this strange location, he finds himself in the middle of a ritual circle unable to lift his head from off the ground. Standing over his body, B.A. informs Bernard of a broken swordstick distinctly different than the one Bernard received from the mysterious Native American man a few years prior, which was secretly concealed somewhere nearby Bernard's place of residence, and that he would eventually go on to find and retrieve this object, only for it to bring about his demise in the end. About a month after receiving these visions of a broken swordstick, Bernard would go on to refuse any assistance towards Collins in the search for this artifact. Only after several weeks of restless anxiety-filled nights, would Bernard eventually agree to help Collins retrieve this artifact in the hopes it will bring him closure. July 29, 1989, after receiving potent psychic material as to the whereabouts of the swordstick, Bernard would independently travel to a secluded area in Danbury Commons, where he would go on to find the broken swordstick, which was left by B.A. After he unearths the badly conditioned swordstick, Bernard suddenly is overtaken by a mysterious black cloud of negative energy, which envelops his entire body. Under the influence of this black mass of energy, Bernard begins to wildly lash out and swing the swordstick uncontrollably as he states that during this time, he was under the impression someone was behind him. After a few moments, this black mass of strange energy would eventually dissipate, allowing Bernard to regain his senses. With the discovery and retrieval of this object, Bernard slips into his car and leaves the premises to study this find with Collins the following day. Danbury Commons is even listed as a site of special interest on independent forums. Shortly after the events surrounding the swordstick back in January, Bernard would go on to flatly refuse any more involvement concerning this twisted affair, leaving Collins with no other choice but to enlist the assistance of old-time friend and adept psychic named Helen. After reconnecting with her through a letter he mailed containing along with it a copy of the Black Alchemist book, Collins would soon make her South London home a regularly visited place for psychical attunement and meditational sessions, in the hopes they could figure out what to do next. Eventually, these meditational sessions would pay off due to Helen's surprisingly accurately produced psychic material. After visiting one of the suspected sites and attuning to any recent activity there, it was revealed to Helen that the Black Alchemist and his cohorts are only a small piece of a much bigger puzzle. It turns out that B.A. is just one contributor in a grand scheme involving a highly complex interwoven network of covert organizations. 3 different occult groups have been identified, each being coined their own unique name. These groups would go on to be referred to as the Dark Council, the Friends of Hecate, and the People of Hexa. With the ultimate plan to entrench all of Britain in a giant energy matrix of influence permeating through various locations of great historical significance, as these will be utilized as their places of power, with the intentions of being able to use this power to control the destiny of the world. Following more psychic sessions at Helen's house, it would seem Collins is finally getting conclusive information as to the ultimate intentions behind these occultists' workings. However, attuning with the sites in question, and seeing the disturbing imagery of the recent activity there, Helen is beginning to become very frightened and unsure in her ability to continue on with this psychic quest. Curiously, despite the fact this has been taking its toll on Helen's mental health, the information she produces is shockingly accurate, and leads the author to his next key location at Hyde Hill Church. As psychic material is often spontaneous imagery of suspected locations, it has been said that one must always act on any information produced immediately, in order to capitalize on the opportunity before it is too late. So without further word, Collins and Helen drive through the night to Hyde Hill Church. Arriving, they set out in search of any concealed items. After a few minutes pass, they would eventually find a concealed dagger which they'd discover is emitting a red glowy mist. At this point Helen begins to panic as she is soon exposed to the malevolent thought form connected with the dagger, and although it poses no immediate physical danger, the psychological torment of being aware of its disgusting presence is just as bad. So with the retrieval of the dagger, the two quickly leave the graveyard to conclude the work for the night. As the months go on, Collins and his team of investigators, which would later go on to be called the Earth Quest Group, would continue their psychical linking with the members of the three different shadow organizations. It would however be quite some time before they were able to produce any concrete material, as for the next several chapters, Collins would enlist the help of other researchers, only to come up empty when they traveled to more suspected sites. As a result, the Earth Quest Group would fall back from the psychic material of the Dark Council to pursue other quests. It would seem the members of the Dark Council have a tendency to disband their activities for long intervals of time in order to stifle the trail of evidence being led back to them. However, Bernard has been having his own personal issues involving the Black Alchemist. He has continuously been in psychical contact with Rachel Goodison. Every so often, he will connect with her astral body through a nocturnal process known as dream telepathy in the late hours of the night, where it has been revealed to Bernard that she disbanded from the Black Alchemist and the Friends of Hecate entirely, and is desperately in need of Bernard's help to escape the ramifications of her decision to leave the cult. Numerous letters and mysterious phone calls have been endlessly harassing Bernard throughout the months, as unknown individuals mockingly leave threat letters in his car, as well as at his front door. By this time Rachel has escaped the country, and is living under the radar with family to avoid the backlash of disbanding the cult with all of its secrets. In the meantime, Collins and his Earth Quest Group are gaining considerable steam as they continue to track down and retrieve more artifacts. By late March, the Earth Quest Group are able to accurately pinpoint and predict the Dark Council's next targeted location, as they begin to realize that the sites in question are in fact situated on a ley line, known as the Old Sarum Ley, further reinforcing the previous suspicions that the group is utilizing an invisible energy matrix of influence sought after in the attempt to gain control of the mainlands of Britain. It is important to know that Rachel Goodison is not her real name. On the night of December 3, 1990, something unbelievable would happen. As we already know, Rachel Goodison was the Black Alchemist's ex-female accomplice, who had recently disbanded from the occult group entirely. It was said that somehow, she was finally able to sever her psychical ties to them. Her ties with the Dark Council was symbolically portrayed as a hideous horned demon, not exactly like the one you see now, but similar in overall structure and grotesqueness. This disturbing imagery permeated through the minds of the highly sensitive Earth Quest members. However, Bernard did not receive this vision. Instead, while sitting in his living room at his home in the early night at around 8 o'clock, he would hear a loud cracking sound coming from somewhere in the kitchen. Upon investigating, what he would find is an unfamiliar white and black piece of jewelry depicting a woman's head, enclosed in an oval shape of smaller decorative art. It would go on to be revealed that this item was paranormally transported there by means of psychical transference, and had somehow materialized from thin air onto Bernard's kitchen table. This item was not dangerous or left as a threat, but rather as an expression of gratitude towards Bernard for helping Rachel Goodison escape England. Upon doing some light research, I found out that objects produced by means of this phenomena are known as an apport. At this point in the video, the viewer has a considerably good idea of the patterns of events taking place within this book. While I could go into details on how Colin's new girlfriend and adept psychic named Debbie was able to track down and retrieve an animal's bone used for a ritual sacrifice, which upon scrutiny, would later be discovered to be littered in occult symbolism. For brevity's sake, for the rest of this video, I will be diving into the heart of the situation at hand. It would seem that the members that make up the EarthQuest group are becoming more and more intimately connected, as a number of them would all seem to recount separate experiences of waking visions and vivid dreams depicting vampires and demonic half-man half-wolf creatures. A particular key location which is actively being used as the primary energy vortex to manifest the demon wolf Fenrir, is actually associated with a centuries-old folktale surrounding the area, given that this location was said to have been the driving motivating factor that inspired Bram Stoker's hit classic, Dracula. The location in question is Whitby, England, in North Yorkshire. By this point, Debbie has taken on the brunt of responsibility for producing any significant psychic material. By early November, 1991, it has been revealed to Collins through Debbie's telepathic connections with unseen forces, that the multi-level shadow organization, occupying various industries on a global scale, had been able to enlist the assistance of a small sect of Romanian shamans, whose ancestral history is said to be deeply embedded with the spiritual forces of the wolf god Fenrir. These people truly believe they are descendants of Fenrir, and through their secret ritual practices, are able to aid the Dark Council and people of Hexa into manifesting the unseen powers and influence of Fenrir, in an attempt to bring about great cultural changes the likes we couldn't even begin to imagine. A few days later, Collins, Debbie and 4 other members of the EarthQuest group would all travel to Whitby Abbey in North Yorkshire, where it is said that the power of Fenrir is being harnessed. After arriving to the outskirts of the abbey, the small team would have to covertly make their way across the restricted grounds of Whitby Abbey. After they finally arrive at the entrance of this great monumental building, they would begin to conduct an extensive search for one of the 3 fixing markers strategically placed in different corners of the abbey grounds, as they would only need to remove one fixing marker to disrupt the energy matrix and delay the plans of whoever placed them there. After several minutes of digging, Debbie would eventually come into contact with a long silver trident fork littered with occult symbols, which had been purposely buried deep at the base of a shallow pond nearby the church ruins. Immediately after coming into contact with this object, Debbie would fall into a deep trance-like state where she would begin to uncontrollably lash out in pain and agony, as it is soon apparent she has left herself susceptible to the unseen forces of Fenrir. It must be remembered that as a psychic, even if Fenrir doesn't exist, the very fact that there are large groups of people investing mental energy into the thought of its existence, is more than enough to leave a negative energy field of influence on whatever ritual artifacts these groups are using. If you take one thing from this video, it is to understand the very real powers of the mind and the influence it can have on the external world. Therefore, with the retrieval of the ritual trident fork, the EarthQuest group would swiftly leave the premises, while Collins has to practically carry Debbie's paralyzed body from off the abbey grounds. Returning to their cars, they would quickly douse the fork with holy water to help release its psychical grip on Debbie. With the discovery of this item, for the next several weeks, Debbie would be bedridden, as all the recent events have left her in a state of total mental exhaustion. After the bizarre events which transpired at Whitby Abbey, Collins would go on to reconnect with Bernard, who had wisely fallen back from this affair long ago, to inform him of everything that has happened. After Bernard is caught up with the full story, he cryptically tells Collins that although he has definitely slowed down the plans of these shadow groups, this will never really end, as the full gravity of what is happening in the world is totally beyond any of them. And with this, the book concludes. It is important to remember that when dealing with real-life stories such as this one, there isn't always going to be a clear-cut happy ending where the bad guy is caught at the end. The purpose of this book and of this video is to inform the viewer of the very real but bizarre mysteries taking place in the world, in attempt to shed light on things that would otherwise be kept a secret. For those of you who are hearing of some of these topics for the first time, I encourage you to keep doing your own independent research, as you will come to find just about every location and artifact presented in this video is verified by multiple different sources. Thank you for watching and please subscribe.